I'm trying to figure out how to get knighted.
That'd be cool. And you can have a round
Right.
table.
So, I think, so I'll present it to the British media.
Yeah.
I fell flat when I brought it up last time we were over there. I'll try again.
Let's do it. If you get knighted, we'll come to London.
That'd be great. You have to put sir. You can't just, it's no more it's coach, it's sir.
Yep, sir.
Which is pretty obnoxious.
All right, this is a treat because we haven't had a lot of Falcons people on, and a guy that I've heard so many great things about. We were just talking offline. We got some mutual friends, Coach Arthur Smith. Appreciate you joining the podcast. How are you?
Great. Appreciate you guys having me on here.
Oh, it's good to have you, man. The first thing I want to do, we just had Dan Campbell on, and we do something called a layup line here where we pick a song to pump up the podcast a little bit. It doesn't always have to be a pump-up song. So we did a little research on you. For Dan, it was like, hey, Metallica or Skynyrd. Give us a Skynyrd song. For you, we did some digging, and we found out that at least when you were in college, Bruce Springsteen was maybe your favorite artist. Is that true?
Yeah, I like The Boss. I mean, that's always a solid, non-controversial one to go with.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite Bruce Springsteen song?
I mean, it depends what time of the year. I mean, if you're trying to get the, summer, I mean, you can certainly go Born to Run, I guess. But any of the other, certainly there's plenty of country songs that you could use as well. So.
Okay. Well, it is just about summer, so we'll go Born to Run. It's a good choice. Safe choice.
Safe.
Coach Smith, yeah. And by the way, your new quarterback, Taylor Heineke, when we had him on, we figured because of where he's from, he would know something about the Allman Brothers, and we teed it up for him to pick an Allman Brothers song. He had never heard of the Allman Brothers.
That's a shame. I'll have to get on him about that.
Rectify that situation, please?
Yeah, I'll try to do that.
Okay, good. Coach, I want to start with the draft, man. You guys have been picking up some really nice, young, talented players over the last couple of years. And some of the free agents you got are my personal favorites. Like, I love Bud Dupree, and Bates is a hell of a player. Onyemata, like a bunch of guys that jump off the screen, and it looks like you're putting together a pretty good nucleus. But the running back pick and Bijan Robinson, obviously a special guy. I think you look at this position and we devalue it, but what made him an exception to the rule? And is there a rule with you in your history always having good running backs?
Well, yeah, I think with Bijan, I mean, he's a different kind of running back. I mean, that's the thing. Similar to how, we've used Cordarrelle, Patterson.
Yeah.
But they don't just fit in that certain box. And then we've done the same thing with certain tight ends. We'll do it with Jonnu Smith, who we had in Tennessee. We traded with New England to get Jonnu down here. Because him, I always use the analogy, Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith are both listed as tight ends, but they can play so many different spots. I feel the same thing about Bijan as we do with Cordarrelle Patterson. They're very different players at Tyler Algier. And the thing about Bijan that stood out is, and I've used this analogy, he's a home run hitter. And it didn't matter what scheme Texas ran, from handing the ball in the backfield, whether they're running gap or, mid zone, wide zone, whatever you wanted to call it, he was a home run hitter. He was a great yards after contact player with really good balance. And then when you spread him out, he's played in the slot. He had that background and some of the 7-on-7 stuff he did out of Tucson, Arizona when he came out of high school. He did it at Texas. So, I mean, he's a unique football player. And the more you looked at it, I mean, he's a guy that can get the ball across the goal line. So we'll take guys like that any way we can get them.
Yeah, for me as a defensive lineman, I had nightmares watching this kid's tape because of his ability to bounce. I mean, every play can go to the sideline. And I know that is that an important thing to you as well?
It is. I mean, I think, Chris, as you guys, better than anybody, when you're playing late in the year, is those guys that can break tackles, I mean, they're a pain in the ass to play against.
Yeah.
It's why Tyler Algier, if you really look at the second half of the season last year, and Tyler's a different yards after contact player, those carries, they add up. And so we're excited about, I think we're going to be pretty unique offensively, but that certainly helps.
I ran into Howie Long in the wild a couple weeks before the draft.
Oh, shit.
I said, "Hey, how you doing, Big How?" He said, "The kid from Texas is the best player in the draft." I was like, "All right."
He did, non-sequitur, just like he loves
right
that running back, man.
Yeah. I'm curious, with Tyler, who had a great year, do you give him a phone call after the pick is made and say, "Hey, you're still a big part of this. We're going to do multiple different things"?
Absolutely. I always try to be direct with our players. I would want to know, and some people think, all right, well, you don't have to share that, but I feel differently because I do want Tyler to know. I mean, this isn't a player that's going to replace him.
Yeah.
A lot of people try to use the Derrick Henry analogy. I got asked a lot after the draft, which is ridiculous. I would never ask somebody to be Derrick. What Derrick did for us in 19 and 20 when I was in Tennessee is rare. And I don't believe, in comparison to players like that. And I think with Tyler, I think the way the season goes, I mean, if you can get about 1,100 plays on offense, you're averaging about 65 snaps a game over 17. So even if you try to split it down the middle, which we'd like to be more balanced, I mean, it's a lot of carries you got to distribute. So, and last year, Marcus took a lot of the carries. We were heavily, we ran the ball quite a few times, and quarterback run, which we'll still lean into, but Marcus was different. So Marcus took he supplemented a lot of carries. That won't be the case this year. So when you have other guys that can carry the ball, that helps.
When you had a Derrick Henry as one of a kind kind of guy, I feel like every year as like media members and as former player, you're sitting there and you're like, is this going to be the year he takes a step back? The attrition catches up to him. Was there a conversation that was ongoing in that building about like the net usage and was he included in that? And I bet you the answer would be he wanted the ball as many times as possible.
He did. And, every team I've been a part of, I mean, you're always conscientious of that and, what the trends are and certainly what the player, where he's at. I think Derrick is a throwback type of guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you go back and look at it, Chris, I don't know how you felt, or maybe you feel now when you see some of all the advanced metrics of people, trying to monitor, the GPS tracking, the load management. I know that term gets thrown around a lot certainly in the NBA. And then you go back and look at people that played in your dad's era and the Walter Paytons and the Jerry Rice. I mean, you go back and there's great NFL films of that and their work ethic. I would think Derrick, what Derrick did to get himself ready for the season, I wouldn't count him out. I think what he does is pretty unique and special. He certainly doesn't try to hold back.
With Kyle Pitts and, your background, I mean, one of the things I loved about what y'all did in Tennessee so much was the play action naturally was a big part of what y'all did. And it was a nightmare for a defensive lineman trying to transition and kind of get a read on what y'all are doing. Does adding a running back like this, and I know you already have some forces in the backfield, but just can you continue to lean into that a little bit? And with Kyle Pitts and being a tight end technically, is there more opportunity for him, off of that run game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you go back and look at his rookie year, where he broke a lot of records. He had over 1,000 yards receiving. Now we were a little bit different with Matt back there at quarterback. And it's funny how people forget. It'd be one thing if Kyle was still riding the hype machine, coming in the league when we drafted him out of Florida. But Kyle did have a really productive rookie year. And then last year he was fighting through some things, and he still had a large impact on us winning. Certainly there's things that we all could, improve on. And the thing is about Kyle, he's wired the right way, and I think certainly this is going to be a big year for him, and he's got a bright future. But it is kind of comical, Chris. Sometimes you look back and kind of the way society is. Sometimes I joke, I think we're living through the most technologically advanced era in humankind, but probably the most uninformed era of humankind too. Mm-hmm. People's attention spans are so small, and there's people, there's all this stuff's at your fingertips. There's no context to anything anymore. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's kind of certainly if you look at Kyle, his rookie year. Certainly, he made some big plays for us last year. We missed some opportunities, but we're excited. We're excited to, when everybody's out there and where this offense can go.
And then you get a guy like Drake London, who a lot of fun to watch. I like physical receivers, I guess. And this kid, didn't test, traditionally well when it comes to like, he didn't run like X or Y or Z. What was it about that decision and what went into that calculus? Like, do you not focus as much on the numbers when you look at a guy's combine if you really love the player? Like, how did that go down?
Well, you take it, all relative. There's certain things with with Drake, he was coming off the ankle injury.
Yep.
And so he was late working out. We were able to go work him out privately at USC, which helped.
Yep.
But going back to the tape, there's certain guys, you're not going to make a 4.7 guy. It's not going to become a 4.3 guy when you use the old analogy. He's faster with the ball in his hands. But that from that mid 4.4s to high 4.5s, if you go back and look at A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, they weren't, sub 4.4 guys, but they run away from a lot of people the last couple of years with the ball in their hands.
Yeah.
And they did that in college too.
Yeah.
And then Drake, I got another guy. Yeah, he may not be the 4.3 guy, but he made a lot of explosive plays at USC. Did it inside and out. One of the more competitive players I've been fortunate enough to coach. And then you could see that basketball background too. He's got great spatial awareness, good feel for in the zone.
Yeah.
Coach, really important question. Do you like your uniforms?
Which one? You talking about the gradient
The whole
red?
kit.
Yeah, which one's your
Any of
favorite?
them.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
And how do y'all pick? Do the players pick with y'all? Because, Jeff Fisher used to come in and be like, what do y'all feel like wearing today? And the O-lineman wouldn't want to wear all white because they said they look fat. And, there's just the whole thing going on in the building.
Yeah, well, you got to turn those in about this time of year, about what jersey you wear.
Uh-huh.
Now they'll let you wear the throwbacks 3 times and
Throwbacks.
with the red helmets. And so we'll do that. And then you pick – obviously you can control the home jersey, but you can't control the away one.
Right.
I know this will be unfortunate. People will be upset about this, but we won't wear those red gradient jerseys this year.
Wow. Breaking news.
Breaking news. As long as you wear the throwbacks, Coach, throwbacks are beautiful. Oh, my God. Did the players get a say in that?
I always talk to them about the pant colors, and I'll ask some of those guys. But as you know, Chris, you ask 90 guys, you're going to get 90 different opinions at some point.
Exactly.
You get paid to make a decision. So
yeah. Well, switching over to defense for a second. I mentioned Bud Dupree, one of my favorite players. I thought he didn't get enough credit in Pittsburgh and really in Tennessee either. And what goes into making that decision? What void does he fill for you guys? Onyemata, what'd you see in him? I know that the DC came over from New Orleans, and you probably got a pretty good book on him, playing him in division. Those guys you brought in, Bates, him, Calais, Bud Dupree, what was the calculus with infusing some of that talent?
Yeah, we wanted to obviously get more stout on the defensive line and be able to rotate guys. I think back to that Super Bowl you won in Philly and the way you guys platooned that D-line.
Yep.
I think that helps, of course, of a 17-game season. We've asked a lot out of Grady Jarrett the last 2 years, and even Lorenzo Carter last year. I'm excited we got back. Joe played a ton of snaps for us. We'd like to be able to rotate guys a little bit more. So when that's the plan. We feel good about our depth there. And you mentioned it. Bud, it doesn't matter the scheme when you're an edge player like that. I'm sure that was probably maybe somebody brought that up from going from the Rams to when you played in New England to Philly. You're an edge guy. And so Bud's very similar. And he could set an edge. Certainly been one of the better speed to power guys I've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then when you can roll Calais and Lorenzo Carter and Arnold Ebiketie, another guy we drafted that we expect to take another step. And then interior with David, another guy obviously being in the division. We were well aware of David. Nielson's got a lot of history with him. And he's one of those guys too, when you play him, when I was in Tennessee or my first years in Atlanta, guys, you can tell when you hear the O-line talk about certain guys. So we're excited David's a Falcon now.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the offensive line feels that way, but it's complicated during training camp. So defense, what's going to be different? I know you had Dean Pease last year. Ryan Nielsen's coming over. What does that scheme look like, and what are going to be the cornerstones kind of like for a Falcons defender in 2023?
Yeah, well, we were certainly trying to get bigger along the lines of scrimmage when with Dean being here, and I really appreciate everything Dean did for us. And
legend.
Yeah, when we got here, I told Dean this. I said, we're not going to be able to spend a lot of money. We're going to try to, develop our own guys the best we can. And there's a lot of veterans that I'm very appreciative of that came here on 1-year deals, and we weren't able to re-sign them, or they may have been the last year of their career. And those guys did a lot for us. And this year, obviously, when the cap room opened, we were able to go out and spend a little bit more. But when you're talking about base 3-4, 4-3, as you know, when you're playing a lot of teams in sub offense, you're going to be in a lot of 4-down fronts. Mm-hmm. We'll still be a lot of 5-down fronts. And at the end of the day, what I'm probably not going to get into on here is the scheme part. But what you ask those guys to do, whether you're playing 5-down or 4-down, and if you're trying to ask certain guys to 2-gap or not, I mean, to me, that's the difference in the traditional 3-4, where you had a 0 nose and 2 4s, and people are playing a lot of shell defense, asking guys to 2-gap up front. And there's certain things we may or may not ask guys to 2-gap, but that, to me, is the biggest difference when you're talking about 3-4 to 4-3, because, I mean, how many different under fronts did you play, Chris, in your career?
Well, I mean, I played a lot of different schemes, and under we played a little bit with Greg Williams, and then, you mentioned New England. It was funny because, I was an edge guy, but then they were like, oh, by the way, you're going to play a lot of 3 this year. And I was like, oh, yeah, all right.
They tell you that when they recruited you there?
They didn't tell me that, yeah. They told me that week 3 when I think it was Jamie Collins got traded, I think, and then the whole scheme changed. And it was like I came into work one day. I was like, okay, I'm going to be working out with the D tackles a lot. But, I mean, you bounce around and teaching the schemes, the fundamentals are the same, right? But it's just different positioning, different hand down, different pressure key. It's the repetition of transitioning from one scheme to the next. It's just reps.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm excited. I'm excited about the depth we have up front, and the possibilities of where this team's going.
Yeah. No question. You got the schedule that came out. I mean, you know your opponents for a while now. But I think, some people are like, the content consumers, we already knew who they played. And now it's about whose social media team can come up with the best schedule release video. Do you have a say? Do you have to lay eyes on that schedule release video before? I know you probably saw Tennessee's this year. The Chargers have a pretty famous one.
Yeah,
where do you have? Do you have a say in that whole thing?
Nah, not really. I mean, I don't get that deep in the weeds on that stuff. It's some people, they'll lose their mind over the way the media landscape's changed. I mean, the teams now, I mean, their media department, they're enormous, and so if you got worried about everything that's written, I mean, I'm not doing my job, and
you won't have time.
No, but the thing I think you try to make sure is nothing that just absurd, that's maybe classless, but I'm not a marketing person, so I try to just stay in my lane as best I can.
When the schedule was released, were you happy to see Bryce Young in week 1, Jordan Love in week 2, as opposed to week 17, 18, because they're not going to have that many, obviously, reps under their belt, and you see 5 out of the first 6 at home. Did you like the way it shook out for you schedule wise?
I think the most important thing to me is the travel and the logistical planning with that part. We're going to London week 4. Ooh. We're not taking the bye. We went to London 2 years ago and took the bye. It was a week later. Those are things I care about more than, I know people make a big deal, but we've all seen rookies that come in week 1 and they light it up. I think if you go back and look, I believe Cam Newton had a 400-yard day passing. You can fact check me here. I think it was against Arizona.
You're right.
And, we played them when I was in Tennessee. It was a couple of weeks later and played pretty well and got up on them. And, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't concern me as much. Some people get up, all unnerved if it's a new staff and they don't have enough film. But I don't. That doesn't concern me as much. But the travel logistics is what I care about. How to plan out, when your bye is, and that stuff does matter to me.
What week is y'all's bye this year?
We have it off the top of my head. I know
11.
It's November 19th.
11.
I believe it's is it 11?
11.
Yeah, which is a good spot for a bye, I feel like. Mm-hmm. That's kind of sandwiched in the middle enough, We
also got, Chris, we didn't get a Thursday night game, so, I know a lot of people make a big deal of that mini bye, but I just try to take advantage of the fact that we don't have to cram for that short week.
Yeah, that's the hard thing, right? What goes into trying to get your whole game? as a player, we're not worried about it, especially the D lineman. I'm like, okay, we're running over. I'm good. But y'all were scrambling like the coaches you can see it on their faces. It really throws off the routine. What goes into that Thursday week?
Yeah, I've done it so many different ways, different staffs. I mean, I think that another thing where it comes back to is the travel.
Yeah.
Where are you at that Sunday before the Thursday game? And then if you do have to go on the road, how far is that travel? Because it is like cramming for an exam.
Yep.
Certainly from a game planning perspective. And then, trying to get – I've done it so many different ways, and it's like how you handle that Monday night, if you have a walkthrough that night or you don't, is that the difference? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, once it's kicked off and if you guys are ready to go and how you execute, to me, is more important than anything. So
no question.
We don't have to worry about that this year.
Coach, I didn't know this about you. I'm like the only person under the sun that didn't know this about you until like last year, that like you're part of the FedEx family. I know you've talked about it a lot. Probably a guy that didn't need to do this. I know you've discussed this, but like what goes into, the process of making that decision? Like, I want to give my life to this profession that really is hard work. When I know you would have been fine anyways, but that's not how you're wired.
Well, I mean, I think it's first off, I was lucky as hell to have two great parents.
Yeah.
And, I think the biggest impact that this game, has had for me in terms of a lot of it was passed down from my dad. And I don't know if you felt this, obviously you grew up you played the same sport as your father.
Yeah.
Obviously a very successful career. But there's something about football and the lessons it teaches you. And that's always my dad. My dad was a Vietnam Marine, did 2 tours, and he either wanted us to play football, or my brothers, and I'm one of 10. So I've got an older brother and a younger brother. We all played football, at least through the high school level, because he thought it was a game that could teach you a lot of lessons and about discipline and things that, you wouldn't otherwise learn. So it was either, kind of wanted us to go in the military or play football to have that kind of structure. And the thing, Chris, it's I don't know if you felt this way. It didn't matter where you came from, but it is a profession where they keep score. It's not a perfect meritocracy at all, but it's better than most professions. And,
yep.
and I love the fact that you go out there and compete. Played as long as I could. Played, through college in North Carolina. You meet a lot of great people on the way, and it doesn't matter whether you're from, inner city Memphis or you're from the middle of nowhere, Montana. There's nothing like the bond of the locker room and then going out there and having to prove yourself.
Coach, were you a Tar Heel on October 22nd of 2005? Final score.
Oh yeah,
final score
the
from
shootout.
Keenan. Yeah.
Yeah.
UNC 7, Virginia 5.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my
God, dude!
Aesthetic game in ACC history. I would put that down there.
2005, huh?
Yeah.
7-5. Yeah, I remember that game. I do, because
you guys were loaded on defense.
We were good on defense. We had a lot of pro body types. Al Groh loved the pro body types. We had the pro socks. We had to wear our socks up and all that stuff. So, yeah, I remember that game well. Another thing is y'all took Ronald Curry from Virginia, and the domino effect that had on our program, because I guess you want to explain it. It was Ronald Curry.
Ronald was committed to Virginia, changed his mind on signing day, and in the process, Tech snapped up Michael Vick.
You heard of him?
Yeah.
You guys didn't get anybody out in the Chesapeake area.
No. But you also played with Ben Johnson, or was Ben there?
Yeah, Ben was on the team.
Yes. Yeah. How psyched are you to see his success? He's one of my favorite coaches in the league, and I'm so happy he stayed in Detroit. Talk about Ben a little bit. I know it's not the question you get all the time, but.
No, he got upset at me. Somebody asked me, and I think it was at the Combine 2 years ago when he got the job in Detroit. I love Ben. He's one of the smarter guys I've been around, and a genuine, great person. And he was a couple years younger. And Chris, I don't know how it was, with some of the guys who are younger than you. That I made a joke, and he got all upset because I said he couldn't take a snap. So he was so nervous when he was a young guy in there, but really smart player. Obviously, he's done a great job in Detroit. We'll see them week 3.
Yeah.
But looking forward to it. But I'm really happy for Ben.
So one or two FedEx questions. Have you received a fine via FedEx? Because as
Not
players,
personally, no.
it's like when we say, hey, you're getting a FedEx, we know what that means. It's like somebody's coming for your money. Okay, the next question I have is, how long did it take you to realize there was an arrow in the logo?
Well, I remember when they rolled out that new marketing plan, when it went from Federal Express to FedEx.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that day.
So you knew the first
Knew
day.
right
I knew
away.
like 3 months ago.
It is funny when people see it for the first time, people that have known for a long time, they just realize it.
That's a major aha moment. And then the other one is, I hear you have a sister who's a producer, possibly in movies or TV, and maybe you could shed some light on this. Like, Castaway is one of my favorite movies. I don't know how FedEx people feel about it because of the plane crashing, right?
Probably got to sign off on that.
What? How did that come about? How does Tom Hanks, is he like, hey, I'm thinking I want to do FedEx, and then y'all are like, yeah. I don't know what's happening in the movie.
I don't want to butcher the story completely, but I think the basic, how that thing started, and I could, again, we could fact check this all, so maybe this would be good editing, or I just look like a buffoon.
We're wizards, man.
Either way, I'll tell the story as I know it. So the guy that wrote the script was a guy that had served in Vietnam, and I believe he emailed my dad about the storyline, and he said, basically he was like, sure, as long as you make it or doesn't make the company look horrible with the way that it made the plane crash. So then there's more to it, because at the time, Senator Bob Dole was trying to raise money for the World War II memorial that's on the National Mall. And, it was kind of slow going, so he asked my dad to help him raise money, from the business leaders, around the country to give money. It was it's kind of, I didn't believe it at the time, but then you go back and you look at it, there was no memorial for World War II on the National Mall. And so he went around and, tried to help Bob Dole raise a lot of money. And obviously Tom Hanks, that was a passion of his, was Saving Private Ryan. He obviously did The Pacific, which are both incredible series on HBO. So Tom took the job. My dad and him kind of struck a relationship, and I believe Tom helped him also push the fundraising over the goal line. And then my dad was nervous. There was a scene in there, and he always jokes that it's supposed to be 5 minutes. It got cut to about 10 seconds. But he was worried about who they'd cast to play him, so he had a little small cameo. I don't know if he gets any
oh, no way.
Nice.
Yeah.
visuals. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's kind of, there's a lot more to it. And one of the cooler things, and I've gotten to experience a lot in my life, was being there when they dedicated that memorial. I believe it was Memorial Day 2004. And a lot of there was still a lot of the living vets from World War II, and that was a hell of an event, and one of the more powerful things I've witnessed. And but yeah, there's a lot of history behind that story.
You said you're one of 10. Who's your favorite sibling?
Yeah, it depends on the day.
Yeah, I got the same thing.
No, we're all still really close.
Yeah.
We have we stay in constant communication. A lot of us are got young kids. We're all raising kids, and it's comical sometimes, just hearing the stories.
How does that work? Because if you have all those siblings, a certain percentage of them are probably NFL fans. Do they have favorite teams? Like, who was your favorite team growing up, and is it kind of evenly dispersed among the siblings? And then do they have to convert to Falcons fans and Titans fans?
Well, at least pretend like they're big Falcons fans now, which
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
There's a big contingency that comes most Sundays, and now it's fun because it gives us my dad always says it gives it's been a reason for people to get back together
Yeah.
on Sundays, and that part's been fun. I see them more now than I used to.
Yeah.
Growing up in Memphis, we didn't have a team. It was all about like favorite players.
Yeah.
I did. The ironic thing is I did like the Raiders. I was a huge Bo Jackson fan.
Really?
I don't know how you felt, Chris.
Love
growing
Bo
up, but-
Jackson. I met him.
Yeah.
I got to hang out with him in my kitchen. I was like a little kid. It was amazing. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Love the Raiders, man. Yeah, no. But the burning question I have about your time in Tennessee is 3 head coaches go, you stay. I know what you'll probably say, but how did you survive All three. Like, what is it about you, man? You got something going.
An agreeable fellow.
Yeah, he's got something about him that he was sticking around in Tennessee through all that. And like, how hard was that? Was it stressful as hell to see all that change? Because when I was in St. Louis as a player, I went through 4 head coaches, 5 head coaches, and 8 years. And I know it can be hard to get your footing.
Yeah, a lot of it, like anything in life, a little timing and luck.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it helped too with the position I was in. When I got to Tennessee, Mike Munchak was the head coach, and so thankful I worked for Munch.
Yeah.
I was actually on the defensive side when I got hired there as a quality control. I flipped over to offense, and drawing the protections in the run game for Munch taught me a lot. And if you ever had a chance to spend any time with him, he's one of the most humble guys I've ever met. Another guy that's got a Hall of Fame bust in Canton, Ohio. Bruce Matthews was O-line coach. But I probably helped is I was cheap because I was under contract. Whatever my title was, assistant tight end O-line, by the time Wiz came in there, essentially he kept me to do a lot of the quality control stuff because it probably wasn't worth getting rid of me to bring somebody else in. And so I was able to do that, and Mike Malarkey became his assistant. So the way that whole thing worked out, Mike bumped me up. And then so him taking over as interim certainly benefited me, and I owe a lot of credit to Mike. And then when Mike Vrabel came in, just coaching the tight ends, he let a couple of us interview, and we had a lot of mutual friends, and obviously thankful he kept me.
Yeah. Will Compton, did he fuck up scout team a lot? Did he make the look? Was he in the right gap on the show team?
Will could sabotage the scout team. There's guys when you and it taught me a lot. When you run those show team cards, you come to really appreciate certain guys. Things come full circle. It's part of the reason that we signed Brandon Copeland, and Cope got my first year in Atlanta. I'd always loved Cope from his early days in Tennessee, and I always thought he was a smart player. And you never know the relationships, when you cross over with people. But Compton's got to be in the bottom 5 of one of the biggest scout team sabotage guys I've been around.
And how surprised or not surprised are you that those two have a big successful podcast now? Like, did you see that looking back? You're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's certainly unique that they both hit it as big as they have. I actually remember Will, pitching that to Taylor. They were sitting in the cafeteria one day. I just remember him. It had to have been sometime in 2018, and I give Will a lot of credit. And maybe like a lot of people, he's just dumb enough to have that right amount of perseverance to fight through.
Yeah. Is there a player on the Falcons right now that you think could have a tremendous podcast? After they're done, don't get any ideas.
On our roster, Ryan Newsel.
Okay.
The O-line had him. I guess his Instagram handle was Newsflash, and so as a rookie, he used to give a news update and never tell him about the O-line room. So we started doing that with a team meeting. He'd give a random news flash. His delivery, it might be one of the better ones I've heard in a long time.
I like this guy.
App State.
Yeah, he's a unique character. He tells a funny story.
Maybe
Chris,
we should call him.
Up anybody's high school highlights?
No, we can, yeah. Ryan Newsel's high school highlights?
Well, he was a tight end coming out, and then he was at App State, and he's got a unique body type too. He's about as wide as he is tall, and he's powerful. But they say he's one of the better country club athletes, where he's good at pickleball now,
yes.
Tennis and golf.
Yeah,
because he is very coordinated, but he kind of looks like get that Barney Rubble look, I guess.
I'm seeing him all fresh-faced in high school right now, getting interviewed. His River High post-game highlight. Yeah, we might need to call this guy. He might be a budding star. Get the news flash.
I think he is.
Yeah, we get a news correspondent down there in Atlanta. Coach, you were there with John Gannon, yeah? Were you guys there together in Tennessee? What makes him tick, and how excited were you to see him get that job in Arizona?
Yeah, John and I shared an office for 2 years.
No way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how you survived the first 2 firings. You had bunkmates in the office. Okay.
We did. And, funny story is like if his contract, he and I were both through that Wisenhunt transition, and he kind of left us in limbo. And then Mike Zimmer got that job, and John's contract had run out, and mine hadn't. And, John was offered to stay, but then Minnesota offered him a job and sent the slip in, so he left. And that's why he didn't stay in Tennessee. But
No way.
yeah, John's a funny guy, unique personality. I mean, that a lot of people thinks he has that false enthusiasm. That's who he is every day. He's a little bit of a Renaissance guy. He likes football, weightlifting, and then Italian fashion. It's comical.
He had me for the overlap was strong there until Italian fashion.
I know. I mean, it's bizarre, but he hasn't changed in that regard, and he's himself. That's for sure.
If you could give any of your friends, I'm sure you have had to do this in the last couple of years, but like advice on what's the biggest jump from being a coordinator to being a head coach and like everything you have to manage, what do you think are the biggest challenges?
Well, certainly, I think it helps when you don't skip steps. I think, the experiences I had at every step along the way, I think sometimes people get, guys have getting jobs younger, and I benefited that, but I don't feel like I skipped any steps. So you have an appreciation of how everything works, from the ground level. And I think going through being a coordinator certainly prepares you to being a head coach. Just having the responsibility, being accountable, in those pressure situations and setting up a call sheet and the play call, then getting to be the head coach, I think regardless of age is the emotional maturity.
Yeah.
Because every day there's going to be a new adventure. And the impact you have when you walk in that building, if you let things bother you, you can impact a lot of people's day. And so I think that emotional intelligence or emotional maturity is paramount regardless of your age. And that's probably the biggest advice, is to make sure that you understand that every day is going to be a new journey, and you got to be prepared for the unexpected.
Now, you hadn't skipped any steps, but do you think you get that Atlanta job if your name's not Arthur?
I don't know, I'd take anything that helped, I guess. It's so maybe it helped. I don't know what the monetary value was on the contract.
Oh yeah, there's 2 Arthurs there.
You don't see it.
You don't see a lot of owner and coaches in lockstep.
No,
like that.
Yeah, my new thing now I'm lobbying for, maybe y'all can help me, is if we can win in London. I'm trying to figure out how to get knighted.
That'd be cool. And you can have a round table.
So I think so I'll present it to the British media.
Yeah.
Kind of fell flat when I brought it up last time we were over there. I'll try again.
Let's do it. If you get knighted, we'll come to London.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
You have to put sir. You can't just it's coach, it's sir.
Yep, sir.
Which is pretty obnoxious.
That's pretty damn cool. Well, Coach Smith, soon to be Sir Smith, appreciate the time and hope you come back again, man. Good luck this year. We'll be pulling for y'all.
I appreciate it, Chris.
Yeah, it's good to meet you. Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.